Alright, so this next section talks about the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system collects fluid that leaks from blood vessels, removes bacteria, debris, and cancer cells, and returns the liquid to the blood. Probably one of the best descriptions that I've ever seen of the lymphatic system. So if you think about it, your bloodstream is going to circulate around in the body, and its job is to deliver nutrients to the tissues and to collect waste from the tissues and kind of bring them to the urinary system to be filtered out, or bring them to the respiratory system so that you can breathe out those carbon dioxide wastes. So as fluid leaks out of our bloodstream into our tissues, we need to have a mechanism of getting that fluid back into circulation. And the way that we do that is through this lymphatic system. So as fluid leaks out of our bloodstream, the lymphatic system is going to suck it up, clean it, and return it to circulation. Why do we have to clean it? Well, inside of our tissues, there can be all sorts of stuff hiding, like bacteria, debris, cancer. And we don't want these getting into our cardiovascular system, into circulation. So what we'll do is we'll suck up these bad things in the body, in our tissues, and we'll send them to a lymph node. And the lymph node contains specialized cells that are designed to trap and remove these things, and then the fluid eventually dumps back into our cardiovascular system. And one more thing I want to say about the cancer. One of the tests to determine whether cancer has metastasized or spread to other parts of the body is by evaluating regional lymph nodes. So if we want to know how severe breast cancer is, we look at the lymph nodes in the armpit, those axillary lymph nodes. If we want to know whether a certain type of cancer has spread further, we're going to evaluate select lymph nodes that are regional in order to see if cancer cells are present inside of those lymph nodes. So lymph is the colorless fluid of the lymphatic system. Lymph capillaries absorb interstitial fluid and deliver it to larger lymph vessels. Lymph passes through the lymph nodes, which remove foreign substances from lymph. Each lymph node contains millions of white blood cells called lymphocytes. Lymphocytes include your T cells and B cells, which are part of your specific or adaptive immune responses. So those are primarily going to be activated against pathogens, and then natural killer cells. To recognize any cell that looks abnormal, so that includes cancer cells. Lymphoid organs produce, accumulate, or aid in the circulation of lymphocytes. Sometimes we consider the lymphatic system the framework of your immune system, because a lot of white blood cells are going to hang out inside of your lymphatic organs. So major functions: fluid balance, it serves as an immune system framework, and it plays a role in fat transport. And with that fat transport, we have the cisterna chyli. So when we absorb fats from the digestive system, we're going to absorb them as chylomicrons, but these can't readily circulate through the bloodstream. So we're going to absorb a majority of our fats from the intestines into this cisterna chyli, which is this large lymphatic vessel. And this cisterna chyli is then going to deliver the fats to the bloodstream. And then from the bloodstream, they're going to go to the liver. If you were to draw out the fluid from the cisterna chyli, it would be cloudy because it contains a majority of fat. So I'm just going to resume this and keep going here. So lymph versus interstitial fluid. It's basically the same stuff. It's just in a different location. Interstitial fluid is the fluid in your tissues, while lymph is the fluid that's found inside of the lymphatic vessels. As we flow through the lymphatic system, we start with lymph capillaries. And lymphatic capillaries are intertwined with our normal blood capillaries, and you can see how they're intertwined here. So as fluid is leaking out of the bloodstream in order to nourish our tissues, the lymphatic system is sucking up excess fluid to return it to circulation. From there, we go into the lymphatic collecting vessels, and they have valves to prevent the backflow of lymph, and then we send them to a lymph node to be cleaned. And then from there, we go into a lymphatic trunk, a lymph duct, and then eventually back into circulation. And where it enters back into circulation would be these subclavian veins. So there's thoracic ducts and lymphatic ducts that enter right into the subclavian veins. And here again you can see capillaries and how the lymph comes in through these vessels and then goes into a lymph node to be cleaned. There are kind of pockets of these regional lymph nodes. You have numerous ones in the inguinal region, the iliac region. Then you're going to have many around the neck, around the ears, and the axillary regions. They're going to be clustered around any opening of the body to ensure that any bacteria or foreign microorganisms that have entered into the body through those areas can be trapped and destroyed. And then your arms lead up to your armpits, your axillary regions, so you've got some there to make sure that any of the lymph that was cleaned out of your arms, if there's any cuts or bacteria that have entered in through cuts, can get cleaned out in those lymph nodes. So inside of our cardiovascular system, we have a pump, the heart. And the heart's job is to move blood through the circulation. Lymphatic system doesn't have a pump, so it's entirely dependent on the contraction of muscles. So when skeletal muscle contracts, it pushes lymph, and lymph can then travel through the lymphatic vessel. And then there's valves that prevent the backflow. So here you can see when it's contracted, these valves are shut and lymph can't flow back down. But it requires active skeletal muscle movement. Kind of like on the vein side of things, we need to keep the blood in the veins moving due to skeletal contraction movement, or skeletal muscle contraction. We have to do the same thing with the lymphatic system. So this is oftentimes why they put those compression socks, not only to keep blood flowing on the vein side of things, but also to keep lymph moving through the lymphatic system. So when we travel through a lymph node, it enters into the lymph node through an afferent vessel. Then that lymph is going to slosh around into the cortical nodes, which is the outer portion of the lymph node, the medullary cords, which is the inner portion of the lymph node, and eventually out the efferent vessel. You should be familiar with the flow of lymph through the lymph node. Inside of the lymph node, it's kind of like a maze, and it's a meshwork of numerous white blood cells that are waiting to come in contact with the exact bacterium that they were designed to recognize as being a pathogen. And they do a really good job at cleaning the lymph before returning it to the blood. And here you can see how the lymph nodes are clustered around the neck and around the ear. Again, any major opening of the body is going to have clusters of lymph nodes waiting to trap any foreign microorganisms that happen to enter into the body.